It says we're live, but I don't know if we are or not. I see words in the chat, but I don't see any 5x5. So maybe we're live. Maybe we're not live. I don't know. Can you hear the words that are coming out of my mouth? Yes, no, maybe. I love this YouTube's. It's the best YouTube's. It's been doing this thing where it goes, it says I'm live for 30 seconds, and then it starts over. And now it says I'm live. 5x5. Jason in Virginia. Good morning. Good morning to everybody in the chat. I appreciate y'all. Thank you so much for being here. Sarah, good morning. Dead Man says 5x5. It is Monday. Frank Chupinka. Frank the Tank. Love that guy. Good morning, Frank. It's Monday. It's the 11th of March, 2024. Liberty, good morning, sister. I hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. I certainly did. We're going to talk more about that after we do the written brief, do a little recap on the Refuge Ruckus. But in the meanwhile, you guys know the drill. Do the YouTube things. If you're not new here, share the show with somebody you love. Leave a comment for the YouTube algorithm, blah, 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 thumbs up, all that stuff. If you are new here, or you're one of those lurkers in the shadows, I see you. 40% of y'all are not subscribed to this show, yet you watch it every day. I don't know if I should be honored or appalled at that statistic, but it's math, it's data, it's facts. So maybe today's the day you want to consider hitting the subscribe button, ringing the little bell icon, doing all the appropriate YouTube engagement things that you should already be doing. Ball's in your court, homie. Okay. Of course, the show is brought to you by Yahweh, your Elohim, the Lord your God, the creator of the universe, who loved us enough to allow us to wake up today. Super cool. Appreciate that. The fine people over on Patreon, link in the description, and the company that I shill for, which is Refuge Medical. Yeah, it's been a long, treacherous road, my relationship with Refuge Medical, but they've taken care of me. They've done good to me, and I'm not fooling anybody. I own the damn company. Anyway, we're going to do the brief today. Been here since before there were briefs. Michael Minuteman says, Millennial Minuteman says, yeah, me too. I've also been here since before there were briefs. Charday McDennis, what happened to the ARC? Product page has disappeared. That's because the ARC is being replaced with a new kit that's in production right now that will be launching soon. I promise you, it's amazing. I showed the patrons. Yeah. The pendulum swings. Bear Independent Brief, 11 March 2024. After several years of experiencing negative impacts from progressive policies, some more traditionally liberal areas may finally be seeing the proverbial pendulum swinging in the other direction. Residents of deep blue cities and states have begun to long for more moderate policies as they grapple with crime, homelessness, and drug abuse. How's Baby Biscuit? Starfish said. Doing great. Wearing a pink and white fuzzy onesie, swinging in the swing over there right now.
She spit up on
Yes, she was changed into said onesie because her ability to maintain a status of cleanliness at precisely 1 week old is non-existent, and so she was bathed and changed and then immediately spit up on her new clothes because that's what babies do. And now she is roaring over there. You could probably hear her. She's like, Mom, get me out of this swing. I'm not playing with you. There she is. Fabuloso. Also, if it sounds like my voice is a little hoarse, it's because it is. Because I talked to hundreds of people for 3 days straight, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And yeah, it's a thing that vocal cords do. In a surprising move, San Francisco recently passed 2 ballot measures to link welfare benefits with drug screening. It's surprising for San Francisco. And increase police surveillance powers. The city has dealt with an, quote, open-air drug addiction crisis, end quote, in the words of LA Times, along with increasing crime and homelessness. This is the same city which had to bid even large chains like Nordstrom and Macy's goodbye after the theft became too much for their bottom lines. Smaller businesses are certainly not immune either. For example, earlier this year, the well-loved oldest toy store in the city, Jeffrey's Toys, had to close down, citing not just inflation, but also, quote, perils and violence, end quote. It's not just inflation, but it is inflation. Operating a business in 2024, let's be frank, it's pretty gay. Like it kind of sucks. I mean, I don't need you to play me the world's smallest violin. We're doing okay, but I long for the days when the dollar had more value than it does right now. Call me a radical, but I'd be cool with getting back on the gold standard. That'd be super duper cool. But they're, regardless of what the current administration says in their talking points, that they parade Karine Jean-Pierre out in front of the air quote press to propagandize us Americans, regardless of what they're telling us, that the economy's strong and job numbers are up and the dollar is strong. It does not feel that way in my day-to-day experience. And statistically, I am in the top 1% of earners in the United States of America. And if it does not feel that way to me, I can only imagine how it feels for everybody else while trying to maintain a homestead and operate businesses and feed my family and raise my kids and be a blessing to others. It's this economy, es mucho garbaggio, as they hablan in the Espanol, which I got to tell you, I'm keenly skilled in my ability to speak Spanish. So hopefully the rest of y'all caught that. It's not great. And so Jeffrey's Toys had to close down in San Francisco, citing not just inflation, but perils and violence. What kind of scumbag do you have to be to rob a toy store? And can we get Toys R Us back? And can we weaponize Jeffrey the giraffe? Can we like armor plate Jeffrey, put like machine guns and grenade launchers on him, have like roving giraffe patrols outside of the Toys R Us? You know, again, I'm showing my successful 1980s baby indoctrination. I don't want to grow up because if I did, then I wouldn't be a Toys R Us kid. You know what I mean? Yeah. Sounds cool. Red is in. Lovely Dudley's in. That's right. We're going to weaponize Jeffrey. We're going to have a whole giraffe brigade to protect the toy stores. We could even get some real life G.I. Joes and station them around there. Jeffrey with an AK. You think Dirty Roofer? Yeah, we could hang like a Chi-Com chest rig around his neck full of AK mags. Anyway, of course, there are critics of these more centrist policies. Some criticize San Francisco's lack of actionable follow-through for the more conservative measures, and others say that the legislation still fails to address the root causes of homelessness, like affordable housing. Far left-leaning progressives seem fearful as they watch their power slip. One article from the San Francisco Chronicle outright said that the city, quote, can no longer be called a progressive city, end quote, after the more moderate ballot measures were passed. It's amazing the things that people like to brag on. We're a very progressive city. It's like, yeah, and you're also a shithole. So maybe, maybe quit smoking your own pipe propaganda, right? And just look at this situation objectively and go, people are pooping on the streets. There are no jobs. People can't afford housing. There's rampant drug addiction, high rates of crime, huge influx of illegal aliens. Did you see Biden's little slip, by the way? No, they're not illegal. They're undocumented. I apologize. No human is illegal. This is a new talking point that the far left is using. There are no illegal humans. They're just simply undocumented humans. Well, if you purposely skirted the immigration laws of the United States of America, that sure as shit sounds illegal to me. But what do I know? I'm just some guy in Oklahoma who has some friends. I'm certainly not a politician. Thoughts on the State of the Union? David, wasted time. I actually haven't even watched the State of the Union because it's propaganda. I've seen little itty bitty snippets on the of commentators speaking on the State of the Union. But we had a Refuge Ruckus Friday, Saturday, Sunday that I needed to prepare for. And it seemed like a terrible use of my time. So I don't have any commentary on the State of the Union because I'm not well informed on the State of the Union. Good morning, the toe cutter. The mayor who proposed the two ballot measures, London Breed, those two ballot measures would be linking welfare benefits to drug screening and increasing police surveillance powers. London Breed will face challengers to her re-election in November. Supervisor candidate Marjan Filhor said that the Progressive Democratic County Central Committee was, quote, out of touch with actual everyday Democrats in San Francisco. San Francisco Democrats want representation in their local Democratic Party, end quote. Time will tell, and the outcome of the vote for mayor will be a good way to gauge just how much San Francisco's progressive zeal may have waned in the last few years. So canary in the coal mine stuff. And it was a fabulous event. Andy Barnes, good morning, brother. Yes, the Ruckus was a fabulous event. Also, in the last few weeks, Oregon state legislature recriminalized the possession of small amounts of drugs. Imagine that. Essentially undoing the drug decriminalization legislation that was the first of its kind in the nation. So they looked at the empiric data and said, well, that didn't work. Secretary of State Shemaiah Fagan said, quote, when Oregonians passed Measure 110, we expected that our loved ones battling addiction would have access to treatment and a chance for a better life. We expected there will be fewer of our neighbors struggling on the streets, end quote. Now, here's the thing. Even a well-meaning, well-intentioned government is going to be ill-equipped to address people problems on the individual level. Yeah, rabbit hole time, diatribe time. It's not the government's job to fix people, but it has become the government's job. The government has been allowed to stick their fingers into that particular space because the people whose job it is, you and I, to love our neighbors as ourselves, have not done a good job of loving our neighbors as ourselves. And so we have abdicated that responsibility. We've given it to the government, and then in turn allowed the government to tax us even further to fund the things that we should be doing, but they are now doing, air quote, on our behalf. And then we piss and moan when they do a poor job of it on our behalf because the government is not built to address the shortfalls of an individual human being. That's what we are supposed to do. And we're supposed to do that with the love of Messiah in our heart, to love our neighbor as ourselves, to help this person who's struggling with whatever it might be. They can't pay their bills. The community helps them get back on their feet again. If somebody is sick, we feed them. If they're sick, we feed them. We pray over them, anoint them with oil. We gather the elders and circle up around them and lay hands. If they need help at their property or their house is falling apart, we put a paint crew together, and on Sunday we go paint or fix fence or gravel the driveway or pull the weeds in the garden or whatever. That's our job, to love our neighbor as ourselves. And if you farm out the loving of your neighbor as yourself to the government, which is not founded, not rooted in the Father and the Son and the Word, of course they're going to do a terrible job of it. And they're going to take even more of your money to fund the terrible job that they're doing. So we shouldn't be surprised when the government fails to take care of individuals. It's not built, it was never intended to take care of individuals. That's our job, to love each other as we love ourselves. And so if more of us did that, which is becoming increasingly hard because the revenue to do that is being taxed, taken from us to the government because the government's doing that job too. Like example, Caleb House, the government doesn't actually do anything about juvenile human trafficking survivors, but they have the money to do it with. But we're over here actually doing it. We don't have any money to do it with because it's hard for people to pour into what we're doing because the dollar sucks and inflation, and they don't have the headroom in their own personal budget to even make a $5 donation to somebody who's actually doing something, right? See, you see how we're circling the drain here with this nonsense? It's not the government's job to take care of individuals. It's not the government's job to take care of people, period. They're supposed to manage the legislative, executive, judicial branches of the government and protect the people inside of our national borders. That's what they're supposed to do federally. Everything else, 10th Amendment, falls to states' rights because that level, state level of governance is closer, therefore more representative of the people inside of those states, right? And then you get down to the county level and the city or town level. And so, like, the most important politician in your life really is who's the mayor of the little town or city that you live in, because that's going to be most impactful on your life. And then who are your county commissioners? Who's your county sheriff? And then who's your governor, your state comptroller? That it should matter that much. But the federal government has become such a behemoth that when they take your federal tax dollars, they then re-inject that federal tax money to the state and the county and the local level. So they're doing the same. Our federal government is doing the same debt trap diplomacy at our state and county and local level that China is doing in places like Africa and Southeast Asia, that the rest of the world goes, oh no, that's bad. People can't afford to repay those loans. Look, China's just giving them money for coercion and influence. It's like, yeah, that's what the federal government in the United States of America does, so that they can have drag queen story hour with children in kindergarten classes and perpetuate whatever their pet projects are, LGBTQIA plus agendas and 87 different genders, and all cops are bad and blah 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 blah, MAGA Republican extremists and domestic terrorists. It's all paid for at the federal level, and the government doesn't generate income. They don't generate revenue. They take it out of your pocket at the local level, bring it all the way back up to the highest level of governance in the land, and then disseminate it back down to you at the local level, filtered through their agenda and propaganda. It's not supposed to work that way. The government is not supposed to take care of people. People are supposed to take care of people. The government is supposed to represent the best interests of the people at the highest levels for the largest problems that can't be solved by an individual person on the individual level. And so we shouldn't be surprised at all that the government doesn't do a good job of rehabilitating drug addicts or finding affordable housing or with work placement programs, because it's not built for that. And every time we try and use that tool to fix those problems, the problems are only going to get worse because that tool doesn't work for those problems. Those problems are our problems. We are supposed to love our neighbor as ourselves, so much that it hurts, that it's difficult, that it's challenging. Diatribe over. Shemaiah Fagan, Secretary of State of Oregon, said, when Oregonians passed Measure 110, we expected that our loved ones battling addiction would have access to treatment and a chance for a better life. We expected there will be fewer of our neighbors struggling on the streets, end quote. For context, Measure 110 was originally passed in 2020 to funnel marijuana tax revenues into treatment programs. But in 2023, the state ranked 50th for access to treatment, while it had the second highest rate of substance abuse in the entire country. So nothing got fixed. Good morning, Tavar. Good morning, Waffles. Now, with the newly passed legislation, possessing small amounts of heroin or methamphetamine is a misdemeanor, which could lead to up to 6 months in jail, though treatment will be offered as an alternative. The legislation also makes it easier to access addiction medication. Critics are still concerned that it may essentially be a kind of return to the unsuccessful and tragically discriminatory war on drugs. The recent political shifts in these two liberal bastions may be indicative of a shift towards more centrist sentiments. Still, the extent and durability of this shift remain to be seen. That is our written brief for today, as the pendulum just swings wildly back and forth. There's a couple of articles that I looked at that we may or may not be interested. I guess more or less for your situational awareness. We don't have to plow the entire article. From RT, Russian propaganda. Trump promised to stop Ukraine cash. Without U.S. money, the conflict between Moscow and Kyiv would end, the Hungarian Prime Minister Orbán has said. Donald Trump has promised to cut U.S. funding for Ukraine if he wins the presidential election in November, according to Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán. The two politicians, who have long been on good terms, met at the former president's Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida on Friday. Orbán revealed details of the discussion in an interview with the Hungarian M1 broadcaster on Sunday, saying, quote, Donald Trump will not give a penny to the Ukraine-Russia war, end quote, if he returns to the White House. Quote, if the U.S. will not provide the money, Europeans on their own will not be able to finance this war, and then the war will end, quote, end quote, he explained. Trump was, quote, the first U.S. president in a long time without a war. We know from his presidency that he is a man of peace, and he does not hide his opinion even now. He has clearly stated that his goal is to bring peace to the Russian-Ukrainian war, end quote, Orbán said. And the article goes on from here, but for your situational awareness, something to potentially look forward to here, or be aware of, because I think that, and dare I say, I hope that, and you guys know how I feel about politics and politicians, but I think that it's likely that Trump is going to win the election, presidential election in the United States. If they, the big they, let him win. And here's one more reason why they might not let him win. And I'm not saying Trump is Messiah. He's not. And I'm not saying Trump is the best president ever. He's not. But comparatively to Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. or Nikki Haley or Kamala Harris or Big Mike or anybody else that they could throw out there, I think he's a better man for the job than Big Mike is, that's for sure. But we know that the Democrats have been fleecing the American taxpayer and sending hundreds of billions of taxpayer dollars to Ukraine. And in certain cases, a bunch of that money, it's been estimated by the, the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, 70% of that money never makes it to the front lines in Ukraine. So that's $140 billion. Where did it go? Where did it go? Well, some of it is being funneled back to the Democratic National Committee. So that's legitimate fraud, election fraud. It's theft, which is not biblical, not allowable. And again, imagine that people in the government said one thing and did another, that people in the government aren't good at solving these types of problems. Well, if Trump gets in and he stops sending that money to Ukraine, that means that the Democrats are going to stop getting that money that's being funneled, washed through Ukraine. No more 10% for the big guy, right? So they have yet again another vested interest in keeping Trump from getting into office, because at a minimum, he's going to shut it down. Could you imagine what would happen if he exposes that? Because Trump's kind of known for his like off the cuff, unscripted, no teleprompter, 40-minute press releases where he just comes out and is, goes full blown Trump mode. Could you imagine? if he was like, yeah, we stopped sending money to Ukraine because the Democrats were laundering money over there, and we have proof, and I'm bringing charges, and everybody on the Democratic National Committee's already been rounded up, and they're wearing a pair of bracelets right now, and here's indictments that I'm dropping on these 7 to 10 Democratic national figures. Dude, chaos. It'd be chaos. Rightly so, but it would be chaos. And so, even more vested interest for the big bay to keep Donald Trump out of the Oval Office in 2024. And then the last thing that I wanted to look at this morning, just again for your situational awareness, some of y'all may be tracking on this, some of y'all may be not, but they're from The Blaze. I'll read a little bit about this. You might have heard about the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Control Applications Act this week. PAFACA, the PAFACA, Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act. On social media and even in some headlines, it's being referred to as the Ban TikTok Bill. The Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act addresses concerns regarding TikTok's ties to its Chinese parent company, ByteDance. So far, it's gained unanimous approval from the U.S. House Energy and Commerce Committee. With a vote of 50-0, the committee advanced legislation that, quote, would make it illegal for U.S. entities to distribute, maintain, or update apps or other immersive technology owned by ByteDance, end quote. So, a bill has been introduced to outlaw TikTok in the United States of America. And ByteDance has been given an option. I think they have 165 days to divest the ownership of ByteDance from Chinese-controlled to American-controlled. If they do not, after that 165 days, then within 180 days or 6 months of that time, TikTok will no longer be available in the United States of America. Why? Protecting Americans from foreign controlled whatever, blah, blah, blah bill. Why? Who owns, for example, we're on YouTube right now. Who owns YouTube? Google owns YouTube. Who owns Google? Alphabet. Who's the Alphabet? I'll give you a hint. It rhymes with CIA. Facebook, Instagram, Meta. Who owns those? Mark Zuckerberg. Facebook was launched the day after an almost identical platform called LifeLog that was developed by the CIA shut down. By a rando college kid, Facebook was launched the day after the CIA shut down LifeLog, which was exactly like Facebook. And some college kid in his dorm room who had hundreds of thousands of people per day signing up for his application, his servers never crashed. He never had any customer service issues. There weren't any cash flow and revenue projection issues. It just somehow miraculously worked. So who runs Meta? Well, who developed the technology that Meta's founded on? The CIA. Okay. Why is that important? Because every time you interact with the algorithm, you are telling them what propaganda works for you, what propaganda doesn't. Additionally, CIA, Wild Bill Donovan, Office of Strategic Services, one of the things, World War II and post-World War II, one of the things that impressed the Office of Strategic Services about the Nazi Party was how the Nazi Party was able to fund the SS and maintain the Die Waffen-Staffel, the SS, with its own political leadership, its own supply chains, its own weaponry, its own logistics outside of the Wehrmacht, the German army. And the way that that happened was that there were 750-ish companies, some of which you've heard of, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Daimler, ThyssenKrupp, IBM, International Business Machines, and many, many, many others. The vast majority of them German companies. VW, thank you, Red. Yeah, little companies you might have heard of. These companies, the vast majority of which were German companies, all gave about 10% of their profit to the SS. And so the SS built a conglomeration of companies that would siphon some money off the top and send it to the SS. So they disaggregated their income, their revenue streams. And that's how the SS was funded. And that's how the SS stayed out of control of the German parliament, German chancellery, and out of the chain of command of the German army, the Wehrmacht. And so the OSS, Office of Strategic Services, which was the precursor to the CIA, saw this and was like, that's a great way to fund black ops. Fast forward 80-ish years, here we are. Why would the alphabet soup agencies be interested in owning, I don't know, the most popular social media platforms on planet Earth? One, revenue streams that are outside the oversight and control of Congress. Congress has the power of the purse, right? For sure. When they use it, which they don't anymore. But what if there were other revenue streams that came in that were separate from the line item budget that has to be submitted to Congress, that's used to, say, fund things like black ops, things that never happened in places that don't exist and were perpetuated by people who don't have names? That's one reason why social media ownership is so important. Another reason is what's called your digital exhaust. Every time you interact with the algorithm, you're telling it what you like and what you don't like. The algorithm is designed to propagandize you. It's designed to make your brain produce dopamine that you will continue to scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll. Why are there so many whores on Instagram? So that you will continue to look at it. Have you noticed Instagram? One of every 3 posts is an ad. One in every 3 posts is an ad. YouTube is an advertisement platform masquerading as a content platform, but it's all about ad revenue. Same thing with Meta. It's all about ad revenue. And the analytics that come from Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram, are so good. As somebody who runs ads on those platforms, me, for Refuge Medical, they're so good that I can target you based upon, with a targeted advertising, your age, your gender, your race, your income bracket, your zip code, down to the neighborhood that you live in, your lifestyle choices, your interests, your hobbies, your faith. That's 10 things right there off the top of my head. 10 different boxes that I can click for this targeted ad. So that when this ad is served up to you based upon the algorithmic data that you have given to Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all these other things, you see the ad and the ad resonates with you and you're more likely to transact. And that's all from your digital exhaust. It's all from the information that you are giving to these platforms. So why should ByteDance divest of its Chinese ownership and get American ownership? Because currently ByteDance is a Chinese company, which means that it's subject to the Chinese Communist Party. And so the overt talking point here is that the Americans are being propagandized by Chinese propaganda on TikTok, which is anti-American. True. But what's not being discussed is that Americans are being propagandized by American propaganda on American social media. And who owns American social media? Alphabet soup companies and private investors. who sits on the board of directors at these things. Not the best people on planet Earth. And so I think the reason this TikTok bill has been introduced is not to protect Americans from Chinese propaganda and not to have the Chinese Communist Party collecting digital exhaust on Americans, although that's already happening. That's the overt reason why. I think the non-stated purpose is to take TikTok into American ownership so it can be used to collect Americans' digital exhaust by Americans and propagandize Americans with American propaganda rather than Chinese propaganda. My 2 cents on the subject. Palmetto Paratrooper, you can almost target a specific person in a specific place. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's that good currently. You start introducing AI into this, it's going to get gnarly to the point that these smartphones here, there's an entire subculture, an entire movement back towards dumb phones. Eric Prince was talking about this on Patrick Bet-David's podcast the other day, about a week ago, because we were in the hospital with the baby when I was watching it. So I think it was about a week ago. The move towards dumb phones that aren't geolocating your position every 4 seconds, that aren't transmitting your SSID or MAC address constantly, that aren't that don't have a camera and a microphone that can be turned on remotely at any point, that aren't collecting that digital exhaust, that won't run those apps. And I think it's really smart. And I've also said this before, but I will say it again. If you are ever endeavoring to do anything that might cause your particular government agent who's keeping tabs on you to make a frowny face, don't bring your phone with you. Just don't bring your phone with you. The last thing you want is your agent to make a frowny face at their desk when you pop up as an alert on their computer. Oh man, they're going to go do some sketchy stuff. Oh, frowny face. You don't want to ruin their day. They already have a very tough job as it is. So if you're going to go do anything sketchy ever, and sketchy could include just meeting with other people and talking about things that the government doesn't deem popular, leave your Babylonian rectangle of death at home. Leave it at home, because it's 100%. This thing is a weapon, and it's not weaponized for your good. It's weaponized for their good. Now, some of us take calculated risks and do things like this brief every day with y'all. And so if you appreciate this, share it with somebody you love. That's how we grow the show. But there's a big movement back towards dumb phones. Are AI going to be like the Terminator? I was talking to a guy about that recently who it is his job to know. And when people like that, when it's their job to know and they tell you, bro, it is way worse than you could even fathom. I'm like, well, thanks. That's awesome. I was like, yeah, so like Terminator, we can kill him, right? Like armor piercing rounds, like push him into a pot of molten metal, like at the end of Terminator 2. And he's like, no, like way worse than Terminator. Which is why I live out in the country with people that I love. And if the robots ever storm my position, I'm going out in a pile of brass. But I mean, think about it. We already have autonomous hunter-killer drones. They already exist. With like, in some cases, 2-week loiter times. 2 weeks. Like, what's your anti-drone capability currently? My guess is 0. Now imagine even if you possessed some man-portable anti-drone capability. Could you maintain vigilance with that 24/7, 365? I mean, just watch footage of what's happening in Ukraine. They're taking off-the-shelf drone technology, putting a quick connect underneath it, quick release rather, hanging it underneath the drone, hanging a grenade from underneath the drone, flying over the top of Russian tanks and pulling the quick release and dropping grenades or trench positions or LPOPs, or anything else they can find. They find something with a thermal signature, fly towards it, drop grenade. And this is happening, being used by both the Russians and the Ukrainians with an incredibly high rate of success. And that drone off the shelf cost about $5,000. Now, for you and me, $5,000 is a considerable amount of money, but for a Department of Defense, a Ministry of Defense, $5,000 is not that much. And that drone, until it's shot down or something catastrophic happens, can be used over and over and over and over again. And if you could take the crew on a $100 million tank out with a hand grenade, it costs $12, and a $5,000 drone, in the scheme of warfare, that's a huge win. Well, that's terrifying, says Comfortably Numb. Yeah. Red says skeet shoot. Yeah. But here's the thing. These things can loiter so high in the air that you can't even hear them. You don't know that they are there. This is already happening. Like, it's already happening. So I have a video on this. Emanation and decimation. It's a thing, man. It's a thing. I spent some time around some Air Force JTACs, and they are some scary dudes. Super duper scary dudes. They're nice guys. I will say, the ones that I met, nice guys with very scary capabilities. You don't ever want to be on the wrong side of those guys, because they'll find you so fast and drop a grenade on your position so fast that you literally won't even know you're dead. And a grenade will be the least of your concern. We were doing Op4 one time, and just for show, just to show that they could, they had a AC-130 Spooky buzzed our position like 100 foot off the ground. Whoa, this gunship just comes in and just, hey, we know you're here. Okay, cool. Had that thing open up on our position, there we would have been mush. There would have been nothing to bury. Okay, and why? Because somebody pressed the transmit button on their radio when they shouldn't have. All this already exists. And so, anyway, back to TikTok. I believe the reason that the federal government is so interested in the divestiture of TikTok is not because they don't want China to use that information against us. It's because they want to be able to use that information against us, as they have already demonstrably been doing with social media. So, advice to you: do not worship at the altar of social media. Don't be on that stuff unnecessarily. It goes back to the concept of building a life worth preserving in the first place. Don't trade relationships with real people for relationships with your iPhone. And if you're going to do anything even remotely questionable or sketchy, leave your phone home. Okay? Okay. Because you don't want your federal agent making a frowny face. You're just going to ruin their day. Be considerate. Leave your phone at home. Red, what's your normal? My normal is beautiful. My normal is spending time with people that love me and being engaged in meaningful work and doing my best to put a smile on the Father's face every day. That's my normal. And it's an absolute blessing. And it's attainable for all people. Certainly for everybody within the sound of my voice right now. Purpose and fulfillment comes from being engaged in meaningful work that you like doing, you know how to do, and that you're good at, and that the outcome of that work is meaningful and impactful beyond your own benefit, and it stretches out to be a benefit to other people. That's how one derives purpose and meaningfulness for their life. And then spend time with people that you love. And even if it can't be large amounts of time, and I am this way very much so, make the time that you do spend quality time, because it's much better to have small bits of quality time than large quantities of low quality time. And so be intentional with your time when you're with people that you love. Be with people that you love. Yeah. And then relationship with the Father. No man takes my life, I lay it down freely. Freely it was given, freely it shall be given unto you. Confess your sins. Ask Messiah to come into your life. Walk in his ways. Do what the Father tells you to do. Read the word every day. Live by the word. Be the light. Help people. Love people. Love the Lord your God with everything that you've got. Now you do those things, the three basic things. Be intentional with your time with the people that you love. Be intentional with your relationship with the Creator by the blood of the Son, and do meaningful work that's not just a benefit to you, but is a net benefit to everybody else around you. Those three things, you now have a life worth living, a life worth perpetuating. Ace McLean, I'm new here. I'm enjoying your videos. Keep up the good work, brother. Bless you, Ace. Thank you very much. Now that we have a life worth maintaining, now the prepper stuff matters all of a sudden, because preparedness is perpetuating normalcy for the people that we love. You have to establish normalcy first. And it doesn't mean in your normalcy that there won't be trial and tribulation and heartache and tragedy, because that will still happen. That's the human condition. That doesn't mean that God loves us any less. It doesn't mean that we're pieces of shit. It just means that bad stuff happens to good people. And sometimes good stuff happens to bad people. That's the human condition. You know, the Needy Homesteader put a video out on Saturday on Shabbat that a bunch of y'all forwarded to me, talking about Bear Independent and the good works that we do here. And that sister has had tragedy in her life. And yet she's still here. She's still plugging away. And she's still raising her children in the way that they should go so they do not depart from it when they are older. And she's still doing work that extends beyond her household into your household. She's still loving the Father with everything that she's got to the best of her ability, loving her neighbor as herself. If you watch that video, she talks a lot about love and intention. She might not use those words, but those are the words that I would use, love and intention. So even in the face of tragedy, she still has a life that's worth perpetuating. And so much of that comes from faith. And so if you haven't established normalcy yet, my advice to you is press pause on the prepper stuff and pour that effort, that time, those resources into building a life that's worth perpetuating in the first place. Because if you have beans and Band-Aids and bullets, but nobody to share them with, what is the point? What's the point? Joe Aquilino in the chat. Blazeric with immortal lyrics. Hey, there was a drum set where I was at yesterday, and I almost played it. I didn't, but I almost played it. That's the brief for today. I'm going to give you guys an overview of the Ruckus, Refuge Ruckus. I would tell you to go to refugeruckus.com, but it doesn't matter right now because the Ruckus for 2024 is over. Spoiler alert, there will definitely be a Ruckus in 2025. I am so proud of my teams of people. They did such a good job, y'all. They did an amazing job. I don't have words for how proud I am of them. It was so cool seeing my people do what they do, and everyone was so competent and so helpful. There was the vibe of this place, man. There was so much love in the air. It was amazing. Roman Jeeper did an Instagram post on the Ruckus, and his description was the best description that I've seen. He said it felt like one big family reunion, and that's completely accurate. It was not a prepper meetup, although people who were there were preppers. It was not a faith conference, although there was a lot of people of faith there. We had 250 people for Bible study on Shabbat. 250 people, the vast majority of which I've never met before. And we still did a midrash. We still kicked it around. We still dove into the word, chewed it up, spit it back out again. You know, we were passing microphones around the room with people asking questions and providing input and reading scripture and praying. And we had worship music. My brother Cody from Texas came up and played keys for us and sang, and it was beautiful. And my brother Cody from Sojourn Gear played his guitar and sang, and it was beautiful. And then Slave to Servant was they played music for us at the after the awards ceremony yesterday afternoon, and it was awesome. And there were kids everywhere. Like, it really was like a family event. There were husbands and wives and children and littles. There were a lot of littles just running around all over the place. And everybody there was cool. Like, even the people who were maybe a little weird, they weren't weird because they were bad people. They were weird because maybe it was the first time they'd come out of their shell in a long time, or maybe ever. I made the effort to come and be around other like-minded people. And so when I say weird, maybe it wasn't weird. It was socially awkward because they're not good at this stuff. They're not extroverted like I am. They're introverted, and they don't have a lot of experience being in a room with 250 people in it, talking to other people. And so the vibe was amazing. And one of the things that completely blew me away was Kyle, who's on our board at Grindstone. Kyle had said, hey, I want to bring a baptismal in case anybody feels the need to get baptized. And I was like, I think that's a great idea. Let's do that. Because if one person gets baptized that weekend, it's a win. There were 42 baptisms. 42. It was beautiful. And the expressed purpose of the ruckus was not to gather together and read the word and baptize people, but because of the quality of people who came to the ruckus. That's what we did. We came together and we read the word, and the Spirit moved over and over and over again. And 42 people got baptized. Some for the first time, some to rededicate their life to Messiah, some to mikvah, cleanse away some of the bullshit that they had been carrying around that they didn't want to carry anymore. They wanted to give it back to the Father. It was amazing. It was beautiful. And so it felt like one big family reunion. And on Friday, we had guest speakers and presenters and vendors, and the vendors did well, and the speakers were awesome, and there was lots of room for meet and greet and fellowship, and I don't know how many people met other like-minded people in their area. So it's why I encourage you guys to go to events like this, to just go meet other people, right? We had people, so this was in Fort Smith, Arkansas. We had people from New Hampshire and Alaska and Florida and New Mexico and Michigan and Ohio and Tennessee and Kentucky and Alabama and Utah and Montana and North Dakota. Like, we had people from everywhere. And it was awesome. And I got to meet so many of y'all, shake your hands, give you a hug, spend a few moments talking, prayed with some of y'all, got to baptize some of y'all. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And it was way more than the sum of its parts. And I believe the reason it was way more than the sum of its parts was because the quality of people, my people on my teams who made this thing happen in the first place, the Caleb House team and the Refuge team, they nailed it. The quality of the attendees, just awesome people who took the time to show up and do something about human trafficking, not just talk about it. And because there was enough space left in the schedule for the Spirit to move. And the Spirit did. It was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And so on Friday, we had speakers and presenters. Saturday, Shabbat. And so we had a Midrash, a Bible study that went from like 1:30 to 5, somewhere in there, with worship music and baptisms and prayer. And it was awesome. And then yesterday morning, we rucked. And it was great. The 12th C did 15 laps. Each lap was 1.2 miles. He did 15 laps, so that's 18 miles, because he had people that were sponsoring him X amount of dollars per mile. And so he just kept going. The vast majority of us did the 5K, myself included, which was 3 laps, 3.6 miles. And it was great. But a bunch of people did 4 laps, 6 laps. My son did 8 laps, 9.6 miles. And it was cool because he rocked the first 3 with us. There's a big group that did the first 3. And then he was kind of standing there, and there were more people going for another lap. And it was really cool to see with my son that, like, he didn't want those other guys going like by themselves. So he's like, I'm going to go with them. Like, okay. And each lap he'd be like, yep, I'm going to keep going with them. I don't want them have to do this by themselves. So that was a proud dad moment for me. 8 laps, 9.6 miles, so that other people wouldn't have to do it by themselves. I thought that was really good of that kid. So the ruckus was beautiful. As of our count this morning, we raised more than $20,000 for Caleb House, and that was awesome. And even if the event had broke even, if the event had cost us money, it would have still been worth it, because it was such an awesome, powerful weekend, man. It was absolutely beautiful. And I love being able to get to meet y'all from the Bear Nation. And we're definitely going to do name tags next year. But I love getting to see you guys and girls in person. Thank you, Quail Daddy. Your son did an awesome job. Very respectful young man. Yep. So the ruckus was a resounding success. And I appreciate all of y'all who participated, whether it was on the employee side or the attendee side. You guys and girls are awesome. And we'll be doing it again. Let's see. A couple other things. Refuge Medical. We are out of stock on like anything made out of nylon right now. We have more nylon coming in. And those of y'all who have orders in the queue, they're probably going to ship Wednesday. The whole Refuge team has been on the ruckus, and so like involved in getting this Refuge Ruckus off the ground. And so those orders should be shipping no later than Wednesday. So your patience is appreciated. We do have bleeding prevention kits, BPKs, in stock. They start at like $60. So if you need a trauma kit or another trauma kit, BPKs. How old is your son? He's 15 years old. So BPKs, bleeding prevention kits. The Boogie is back in stock. It's $30, and it's a great little boo-boo / intermittent trauma first aid kit. It's $30. It fits in a glove box, a purse, a backpack. It's awesome. The Boogie, check that out. The belt kit is also in stock, and it's a trauma kit that you can wear on your gun belt, your duty belt, your war belt, your belt, shears and a tourniquet and wound packing gauze, and it's a blowout kit, and it's like the size of one AR mag. I think it's $120 loaded, so worth checking out as well. And you can use promo code BearNation for free shipping on all that stuff. And we appreciate you helping us keep the lights on and make payroll at Refuge Medical. And if you could leave us a review at the website, if you've already bought something from us, reviews really help. And if you're thinking about buying something from us, go read the reviews that are there. The Bearfac has a 4.99 out of 5-star average with hundreds of reviews. The bare minimum has a 4.98 out of possible 5 stars with hundreds of reviews. The SOB, small to back kit, is a 4.9 something. The adventure kit's a 4.9 out of 5 stars, like out of hundreds of reviews. So it's legit quality equipment. Grindstone. If you need to get a copy of the scriptures, grindstoneministries.com. The links are in the description, by the way. And you can buy them at our cost. Or if you can't afford one, you can reach out to us through the website, and I will send you one for free. We're fixing to come up on hurricane and tornado season again, because it's about to be springtime. And the Grindstone War Chest is a little light for disaster relief. So if the Spirit moves you, there's a way to donate at grindstoneministries.com for the good works that we do with Grindstone. If it does not, no worries, no hard feelings, but just putting it out there. Then, of course, Caleb House. I'll give you guys a little bit of an update. We just came into contract with Covenant with general contractors. And that's awesome to have some people who are going to be on site. Their job is to make Caleb House get built. That's beautiful. That's wonderful. And this afternoon, I have to go push dirt with the dozer over there so that tomorrow we can pour concrete for Care House 1. So for everybody who's been in prayer over Care House 1, the first Care House, we're pouring concrete there tomorrow. Praise Yah. And the barn is still under construction, and I've done the takeoffs for the big house, the admin building. The admin building, yes, Son of Liberty, we do take volunteers for storm relief. There's actually a way at Grindstone Ministries to sign up to, you want to be on the newsletter with Grindstone, because that's where the op boards go out for when we deploy. So sign up for the newsletter. We won't spam you. We don't sell that newsletter to anybody else. It's just, that's our primary means of contact. B, use the contact us form, and then you'll get on the list, because we do some vetting. You'll get on the list, and our team will reach out to you. And then when it's go time, it's go time. That's with Grindstone. Caleb House. I did the takeoffs for the admin building, what we call the big house. And it's going to come in right at about $1 million. And you're probably asking yourself, why? Why is that building $1 million? And it's because under one roof, there's 3 different functions under that one roof. The first is there is lodging for living quarters for the on-site director. And I think it's really important to have the director of the facility live on site with their family if needed, because it's a full-time job. And whoever that person is, I want them immersed in what we're doing. And the fact that you would be required to live there weeds out a lot of people that might not be as dedicated to the cause as I would need them to be. So there's under this one roof, there's lodging, there's a house, essentially living quarters for the director and the director's family. So that's the first use. The second is conference room and offices. Offices for our medical doctors, trauma therapists, nurses, attorneys, et cetera, law enforcement, so that literally all of those victim services, medical personnel, law enforcement are literally all under one roof. Because A, it's easier and more secure to bring adult white-collar professionals in than it is to take children off-site to them. B, I want access to those people on the regular. And so it makes sense for them to have offices at our place rather than us to bring our kids to them at their place, even if it's only a day or two a week that they are in office on property. So, and then C, intake facility. Per DHS, I can't take somebody from nothing and then put them into, I gotta go. I appreciate y'all. Shalom.